Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 47th episode of the Manor Podcast. I'm your co-host, Roger Bodee, joined as always with my best friend and other co-host, Michael Hamilton. Michael, I didn't do the bit where I act like you're not on the podcast when we have a guest. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I was kind of ready to be ignored for at least the first minute or two of the episode, but this is kind of a nice surprise.
Yeah, I leveled your expectations because I was like, Michael's probably expecting that I won't address him because I've done it every other time we've had a guest. So I'm going to address him and catch him off guard. Mm-hmm.
He looks stunned. He looks absolutely stunned.
Speechless. But we're joined by our first returning guest, Zachary Bunn, captain
I'm honored.
of the Wolfpack.
I had no idea I was the first returning guest. That's incredible. I was going to ask, you said episode 47, and when do you have like a date when you posted your first episode or started the podcast?
End of May last year, I believe. I don't have the exact date off the top of my head.
Yeah, you guys.
It was 47 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Give or take.
I was gonna say, have you guys posted every week for the past 47 weeks?
Yeah, I've been really. May 28th was our first episode, and we have not missed a week since we started. That's been a big thing that Michael and I have both really cared about a lot, like making sure we always do our weekly podcast thing. And since we started doing university, I think we've taken 1 week off of university during Christmas time when there weren't any matches going on, and that's it.
And universities where you guys watch back a gameplay and talk about it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Those videos are killer. I'll just say, if you aren't on their Patreon, you aren't watching those videos, you should be. What I was going to say is it's very few podcasts make it to a year, and very, 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 very few podcasts actually stick to the weekly goal. I've seen so many over the for far too long. I've been in this industry and seen podcasts show up when people get really excited about a game. So kudos to you guys for the determination and making it this far. It's really remarkable what you're doing. And I try to say it every time I'm on these things, but I do think that content creators like you guys are the heartbeat of this community. So, and I know it's a ton of work. Like I just understand how much goes into it. So really props to you guys for making it this far, and I'm always happy to be on. So I'm honestly honored that you would even care to talk to me again. So here we are.
Of course, you're part of the illustrious Wolfpack, the largest and most winningest team in all of Flesh and Blood history now.
I don't know how you're measuring either of these things, but sure. Yeah.
I mean, we're the team that has the world champion on it by that's, so there you go.
Yeah. Well, we at least won a couple tournaments, as we the proverbial we.
The royal we.
We've done really well.
Yeah.
By that measure, I am a Flesh and Blood god, because my team just keeps winning. I don't know what's up with that. But yeah, no, it's awesome to be here. It's crazy. I've been saying this for the past couple of weeks. So first, I also want to apologize a little bit. If my voice, I've been nursing a little bit of I don't know what it is. It's not strep. It's not COVID. I think it's like just a cold. My wife had it before me. And so my voice is a little, it's doing all right now. This morning, someone commented on me sounding like someone who had been smoking for a very long time when we were testing. But that's not really even what I wanted to note. What I wanted to note is we're kind of at this really incredible point in Fab, for me, at least. One of my big goals coming into 2023 was I want to get to the end of the year and not be burnt out. So about nationals last year is when I was really feeling the burn of just too much, it'd been going on too consistently, too routinely. Took a break, feeling a lot better. But both my general mentality towards the game and also the game itself. We have the Outsiders Limited format, which I'm excited to talk to you guys about. But also even the Constructed and just being in it with the team. I feel like I'm living some sort of dream reality out, where this morning, I was crawling out of bed with my cold or whatever it is, and just genuinely excited to be hanging out and playing Fab at 6:30 in the morning with members of the Wolfpack, and having a team of people that you like playing with in these games, and a game this good where I feel like there's always just these little things you can make better and you can get a little better every day, is truly a privilege and just remarkable. And the past couple of weeks, a couple times we're just talking as a team, and the feeling I have is just my God, this is so awesome. I can't believe that this is the existence that we have. So all that to say, even though I have a little bit of a cold, I sound a little funky. I'm probably more excited about Fab right now than I have been at almost any point. There was a moment when I first got into like really the idea of being competitive at Fab. And I'd taken before the pandemic, I played a game called Star Wars Destiny. And that at the end of that, I was burnt out and I was like, all right, I'm not ever doing that again. Then the pandemic hit and it was like, okay, whatever. And then once the call-in started and my eyebrow raised a little bit, I was really into Fab at that particular moment too, because there was this kind of spark post-pandemic thing going on. Mm-hmm. But right now it's just such a great time to be a Fab player. Anyways, I don't know why I started going down that path, but I just wanted to note I'm really excited about Fab.
That's awesome. It's a nice dichotomy because Michael, the world champion, is completely resting on his laurels, barely testing anymore. He's just like, I'm already better than everybody else. I don't need to practice anymore. I'll just bring some whatever 80 Icelander cards, 79 Icelander cards I brought together last time. It'll be good enough. It's fine.
I mean, until we as a community can prove him wrong, more power to him, dude.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Michael? I feel like he's putting words right in your mouth and you're just sighing.
I've been testing. I just have been testing things that aren't very good, so they're not what I'm going to play at the Pro Tour. So when I'm trying to I don't know, this is a similar pattern that would have happened if Wounded Bull Icelander ended up being really bad. I would have been wasting my time on random bad cards on bad decks, and then decide it wasn't good enough, and then go play whatever the Team Oldheim deck was for the Pro Tour or the Nationals or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have any experience testing bad decks while the team is testing good decks. Not
me neither
at all.
Never. Nope. Never wouldn't happen.
Not me. No.
Not Zach and I. We always just play the best deck,
Man, I going into this Pro Tour 3, if you guys have topics you actually want to talk about, feel free to take over. But going into Pro Tour 3, one of my biggest goals was I just want to play a deck that the team is not raising their eyebrow at, and every day I feel like I'm getting closer to that exact scenario, and I just can't. It's like magnets. I just can't avoid it. I don't know why.
You are who you are, man. You just gotta play a Room Blade. You gotta figure it out. It's just in your blood.
Sucked in. Yeah.
I will say.
At least the good news is. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
I was gonna say. I will say that I am slightly more raising eyebrows based on your recent results with the deck you've been working on than I was a couple weeks ago when you asked me the first time.
Yeah, I was talking to the team. It's one of the upsides of having a team. And 2 weeks ago I was reasonable, but now people are starting to squint at me. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens. Either way, I'll have a good time. I'll tell you that.
Because I guess one of the big things I want to talk about is just how large our team is. I think we have 20-ish people on the team now. So I think at first there was a lot of skepticism as we kept growing and growing. I think Michael and I joined, we went to to 12 or so, or 12 or 15. And then we added a few more people. And then now we're all, like I said, we're all up to 20-ish. And the amount of ground that we're covering on this high level professional testing team, I think is just far and away beyond what other teams or what people are capable of doing on their own. And it's hard to really get a grasp of that, because somebody will just have an idea and you're like, oh, well, that's an interesting idea. Let me see if I can take it. And then they'll tweak it. And then you'll be like, oh, well, I see how you tweaked it. And then this other person has an idea to expand it even further. And I just feel like already we've just iterated on 5-6 versions of every hero we're considering in our tier 1 bucket or whatever. And it's just really awesome to see that much collaboration. And Michael was talking the other day too, where it's just it feels like now if somebody's playing a game at all times of the day in the Wolfpack channel. It's just any time of day you want to find a game, except for 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe. And even then, sometimes.
Even then, I think you might be able to get games.
Maybe I should ask more when I can't sleep.
But how have you felt trying to manage all of that? It's because I would still consider you to be the top team manager, even though you're very reluctant to have that role. But has it become easier or harder to manage the more people have joined?
That's a really good question. So for context, I don't know if you guys have mentioned this on a recent episode or not, but we recently added a handful more people. And like you said, I think we're at 19 or 20. I mean, technically it's, so the Wolfpacks, as we say, for life. So we have some people on the team, like John had a kid. and was kind of not going to events for a minute and not able to actively test as much. And he's getting back on the horse more recently. Then we also have some people like Steven, who I co-founded Covenant with and who I play on stream with and stuff, but he's more of a limited focused person. And even then
And
his
a
life
Bolton
just
expert, a Bolton connoisseur. So we got to give him that too.
definitely. Yeah, 100%. So there's like, some people that aren't fully engaged all the time, but we are pretty actively at like, we have a weekly team meeting and there were 18 to 20 people who are showing up to the weekly meeting. And I was, we wrestled with it for a while. Cause like if you spin it all the way back to when the Wolfpack started, which is just over a year ago now, it was me and Tim and Ian were the primary three people. And we had our split with the Arsenal Pass testing team, as it were. We're testing group. Sorry, I used the wrong word there, not team, group. And we also brought along Dante, and Dante brought along his friend Mike, who later would become Prism Mike, legendary character in the story. And then after that, that was like the team for Pro Tour 1. And then I added I ran into Andrew at the Pro Tour, and I played Star Wars Destiny with Andrew. In fact, he won the last Star Wars Destiny World Championship back in 2019. And I went out with him and a couple of his friends to celebrate his world championship. So I was aware of Andrew, even though he lived in another state. But back then, like when I played Destiny, I didn't play online. Like that was just not a thing that it just didn't happen for me for that game. And so Fab was very different because we obviously had a team and we were playing online and had some Canadians in the crew. So ended up bringing Andrew and stuff. So like there were a handful of ads, like my friend Matt Coles, who's on the team as well. And just people that I knew. One of the special things about Fab for me is that a lot of people play this game that played previous games I played, but also from different games. So like I knew Andrew from Destiny, I knew Matt Coles from Star Wars LCG, and you kind of go down the list of how you met these people. It was actually you guys were the first people that I reached out or however that happened. That wasn't someone I had previously or prior to Fab known, if that makes sense. And it slowly just kept growing. But the team debated. You guys were there for it. But towards the end of last year, we had a handful of people, and it was more regional. Some people in Ohio knew this person, and some people in Oklahoma knew this person, and some people, in Indiana knew this person, or New York, or wherever. And we're already at a pretty big size in my mind. Like once you get to like 10 to 13 people, it's a crowd. It's just a little bit different of a vibe. So pushing up to closer to 20, I have experience managing a team at Covenant, building the company, but we've never been past 10 people. So even the 12 to 14 starts to hit, and it's different because this is just a team of people playing Fab versus an actual company, and
you don't have to manage our
structure.
benefits or figure out how to raise our pay or anything like that.
And no one's worried about who's getting a raise and who's not getting a raise and who didn't show up to work and all that kind of stuff. So it's different, but culturally, I think the communication, even just communication, and like, I think to me, a huge part of a great team is trust. And so you get to a certain level, and it gets really hard to be close to people, and also just to trust them. Let's say Michael does have the next Bolander deck that he's working on, or maybe I finally figure out how to make Viscera good. Then if you have enough people in enough different places, it's really easy for someone just to be like, oh, I'll mention something to my local player who was doing that, or I'll play this deck at a thing. And one of the general, not rules, it's like there's a better word for it than rule. One of the things that I don't know. One of the basic ideas on the Wolfpack is we don't want to prevent people from playing. So if you're gonna go play locally, it's not like a rule. It's just whatever. It's a principle. I don't know. And so you don't want to restrain people from playing. And so like if you hear about or you've been testing something with Roger on Bolton, maybe you finally crack the code, right? You don't want to prevent someone from going to play a deck they want to play in an event they want to play. But anyways, all that to say, I've been really surprised. Like I think the size of the team right now is really fantastic. As you guys mentioned, there's a lot of upsides. Like we basically you can hop on at almost any time and play a game against a serious good player who's actually like testing something specifically. The amount of information that's kind of churning out, and we'll see, right? Like the long-term results will kind of show this or not, because you were saying, Roger, earlier, we're going through all these iterations of decks. We could also be way behind, right? Or we could be way off based on like what the meta is or what's good, and like I'd be surprised, but we could be way off, right? Or someone could figure something out that we miss. I think you could have a team of 100 people and still probably not crack the code on a perfect meta and stuff. It would get easier, right? Because you could just have a 100-person tournament every weekend, and you probably get some really good data that other people don't have or whatever. But I think there's some huge advantages. I also think that there's a really strong diversity of thought on the team. And one thing, Roger, you and I shared, unfortunately, at Pro Tour 2, is that it was basically you were on Prism, right?
I was the lone Prism Island.
Yeah, and I was on Briar, and then the entire rest of the team at the Pro Tour was on Oldham. And what I saw in the lead up to that, I was really jealous of, because I think having other people who are as committed to a deck or an idea as you are, and testing it and talking about it and refining each other and going back and forth, and it's way more efficient. It's really effective. You have someone to check. You're kind of like, there are cards that I have soft spots for, and even if the rugged math of it is like wrong, it's like I don't know. There's situations where this is the right card, so like let's get it. But when you have 3 or 4 other people testing the same deck, that's a lot harder to make happen, right? Because like you're biased for these certain experiences or this certain deck or this certain matchup, and you'll find that out very quickly. But now at the size that we're at, both it's helpful for limited just because you have more perspective as well. But for constructed, I also feel like finally we have the ability for multiple people to be on each hero. So at Pro Tour 2, I think there were only like 6 or 7 of us playing in the tournament. And so there was a bunch of Oldhams, and then there was a Briar, and then a Prism. And then a lot of the rest of the team was really helpful in testing and stuff. But it's different when you're playing in the event, like your commitment level and your interest level and your engagement and stuff. So I do feel like now, though, it's really nice as the player who's constantly, let's just call a spade, constantly trying to make Runeblade work. Even though I'm spending my time doing that, there's a lot of trust on my end, right? That the people who are working on the other decks are doing a really good job. And so in the next week and a half, I'm going to have to make a decision. Like, do I feel like I've got the goods with the decks that I'm working on, or am I going to pivot to something the team's working on? And, I do think it's helpful even in the lead up to Worlds. For you, Hamilton, you very, very kindly spent like 3 or 4, like 6 to 8 hour sessions playing your Icelander, my Briar, because I was trying to figure out how to beat Icelander's Briar. And then it ended up happening that you played against a Briar in the top 8 and the top 4 at Worlds. Or was it top 4 and finals?
It was top 4 and finals, yeah.
Yeah, top 4 and finals. So your last 2 games were against Briar, and we had literally played 30 games. I went back and played 30 games in the 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. And at the time, I'm 99.9% sure you were being nice to me. You did not think you were getting a lot of value out of those games. And how much that helped you or not, I don't know. But even just as my role on the team right now, I'm willing to have a worse tournament if let's say every 10 major seasons, finally the deck that I'm working on is the right deck, and I can help the team either be prepared to play against that deck or to play as that deck, right? And I am willing to pivot. This is the first event where I would be willing to pivot as long as it's a hero I would enjoy on some level. I'll play the hero that I enjoy that also gives me the best chance of doing well. But having a big team has been super helpful for that. And I can just see there's multiple options for me to pivot to if I need to. And there's a lot of people who are prepared and happy to teach those things. But, I think it kind of comes back. We put up, haven't really talked about it anywhere, but the fabwolfpack.com website.
Yeah, we'll link that in the description, in the comments or something like that.
Yeah, we get that question at major events a lot. One of the biggest reasons I put that thing together was people just asking, hey, is there a list somewhere of everyone on the team so I know who, like, when they're on the stream or who to root for or like who's that kind of a thing. So there's the homepage just has pictures and names of all the people that are on the team. But then there's like the about piece. And I think one of the things that when we added the latest recruits to the team, as a team, it was basically the decision of we keep talking about maybe it's going to get too big. Maybe we're going to get too many people. And we can keep talking about that forever, or we can just add the people and find out, right? Maybe we go up to 20 and it's too much. And so far, I've been loving it. And
sure.
we haven't had an event. Pro Tour 3 will be the first event where, since being this size, the vast majority of the team is going to be able to be together in person. And I think those moments are very important for team chemistry, team trust, and just enjoyment, right? Like, you spend all this time talking to these people and interacting and playing games. But some of my best memories from last year are just the breakfasts or the dinners or the after celebrations.
The giant thing of beer.
Yeah, that you were like, yeah, let's get that one. That's
How
the
much
right
can
size.
10 liters be? 10 liters is like a gallon, right? It's like a whatever.
Surely all 2.5 of us could drink that, right? Yeah, okay. And we did, but that was like a great moment, right? Or like the beer garden in Charlotte after Michael won or I think it was before he even won the national championship. That was after you guys had made the cut. And so
yeah.
Those moments are really important to me. And I think in general, the only reason it works at this size, this amount of people, is because there are a fair number of shared values, right? And that's what I was mentioning about the About page on the Wolfpack. I think there's a lot of different ways to structure a group, but being on the same page on the big issues is really nice, right? Which is the short version of that is effectively we're a team, right? It's about the group. It's not about the individual. We respect each other, trust each other, share with each other, help each other in any way that we can. The second one is we love the game and the process. So if you're not having a good time, stop, right? Take a break, go. And Andrew, particularly at the end of last year, was like, or the start of this year, ProQuests were happening that first couple of weeks of the year. And he was really burnt out. I was encouraging him to take a break. Because he was burnt, and now he's like all cylinders are firing. He's back, right? He took his break, he came back, and he's good. The third one is we pursue mastery, and that's something that you can feel. And there've been some new people making some comments about the vibe on the team that's really awesome, which is like it's not this like super intense. I think the whole Wolfpack thing or competitive teams and stuff could sound really intimidating and intense, but it's really not. I mean, if you have a group of 2 or 3 people you play Fab with, like it probably looks a lot like that. Just people hanging out, playing, talking. There's a lot more math, I assume. Hamilton, breaking down the value curve of cards and stuff. But everyone on the team is looking to be as good as they can at Fab, right? And it's not about trophies and $100,000 checks and stuff. That stuff's cool. But there is a genuine sense that everyone on the team just wants to be great. Fourth point being we aren't here for the money. And I think there's other pieces of it, but one of the big things for me every time we were adding someone is just making sure the vibe was right. And it's really easy just to add players because their elo's high or whatever. And not saying that our vibe is the correct vibe as much as there's definitely a vibe to the Wolfpack. That's a very specific vibe. If you've ever messed up with the Wolfpack, I'd be, whatever. But like that was the most important thing to me. And every time we've added people, they've been, very similar values in that way. And it's been amazing to see it just function. It's really cool. So to answer your question from like 20 minutes ago, I've yet to find a downside, right?
That's fair.
It's been awesome. And I think it's not an easy thing to put together 20 people who have similar values, who are on similar levels of commitment for a competitive game like this. And that's part of what I was saying just about sitting back and, just enjoying reality as it is right now, because like, I don't think I spent a long time playing games that weren't the big 3. Like basically I got into Pokemon when it first came out and I was a kid. Within a couple of years, I pivoted to other games and then really for 25 years played everything that wasn't the big 3.
Yeah, I listened to you on a podcast where your family just like didn't allow you to play Magic the Gathering, and I was like, that's wild. And Michael actually said the same thing. Like his family was like, no, that's a Satan game, and my parents were like, have fun.
Yeah, I was definitely in a household where that was not an okay thing. But besides that, it's sort of like the decks that I pick, right? It's really hard for me to want to play the tier 1 deck, right? Or just the obvious, like when Starvo was a thing. I love Bravo. He's one of my favorite original heroes. And then he gets a special treatment version of the hero. And then like the weekend after he came out, he won that tournament. And then I played against it once and I was like, nope, I'm never playing that at a tournament. Like, there's no
Sure.
way I can't do it. So I spent decades playing games that aren't the big three, right? And so most of the games that I've played don't last more than 3 to 6 years. And Fab is in year 4 going on 5 this year. Or
it ain't going
year
anywhere
3 going on
anytime
4.
soon, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I've just never been a part of a game that reached this point where it feels successful and stable. And there's this, I've never played a game with this much tournament support, right? With basically a big event you can go to all the time. And I've never played an event or a game with this big of a community where a team like the Wolfpack could be assembled on this level. So like, it's just this, like, all these things happening all at once. And it just feels kind of like right place, right time. I just feel so fortunate to be getting to play Fab as a player and to be on the Wolfpack as a team, even as Covenant on the business side, like to have a publisher like Legend Story Studios come along and
support the game in the way they do.
Yeah, 100%. It's just incredible. Like it really is crazy. It's just nuts. It really is. It just feel like it living in the moment and really enjoying it. And I hope it goes on forever. Like game deserves it. I would love for the Wolfpack to be around forever. I could do this for the rest of my life. I just love the process. I could get crushed at every tournament too. It doesn't even matter. The process itself has just been so. It's great. I'm super happy with the way things are right now, and hope it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, I know, Michael, you were really burnt out towards the end of last year as well. Do you think, like, has the team helped revitalize your interest in any way, or like how has the team, do you think, helped support you going into this Pro Tour the most?
I think like without the team, I just wouldn't be playing while I was burnt out, which like in some ways is good, but like I also like I really enjoy going to tournaments. I really want to feel prepared to go to tournaments. And like, while I've been, I don't think like, I guess when I've taken the breaks I have, I've always like come back and it's been great to have like such a warm, welcoming group. I feel like I could be friends with I feel like I am friends with most of the team, but I could like individually have a friendship with everyone on the team. And that's like been really helpful. That makes it really easy to come back to, I guess.
One question for you, Michael. I think all of us by after Worlds last year were pretty burnt out. Just they've been a lot all year long. We changed up our scheduling a little bit going into this year. But have you been doing anything to not burn? Like, have you changed your approach since the beginning of the year to not burn out?
So I guess I would say I've kind of just been playing whatever I want to play, and most of the time it's been decks that aren't going to go anywhere. And I guess I kind of did that before, so I don't know if that's really a change.
I think the lax schedule might have helped a lot because last year there was like an expectation, like be on every day at this time, play the games, and now with the team that's the size that it is, 20 people just aren't going to have the same consistent schedule all at the same time of day. And that's why, like, now, like we were saying, some people who can like play a game on like their lunch break as they're working from home, or they get home from work in the evening and they can just jam at games, but other team members are putting their babies to sleep at that time of night. And so they have to wait a few more hours past that. And it's just like, I think making it more, I was worried about like the more freeform schedule. I was like, well, it was like one of those manager expectations. Like, how do we know what people are really going to be doing? What if people are just along for the
clock
ride?
In.
But it's just worked out really well. Because it turns out people like playing Fab and will play Fab when they have the chance.
Yeah, I think that's one of the kind of guiding ways we've set up the team, right? And all of it, that's, you talk about being captain and stuff, but it's all team conversations. And like at the end of the day, someone's got to move things along or whatever. But we had after Worlds last year, we had what could we do better next year? And that's where one of my goals came out. That was like, I don't want to be burnt by the end of the year. And so we looked at a bunch of different ways to make our processes more efficient and also to make everything better and make everything more enjoyable, right? And one of the guiding kind of principles is, again, it comes from a place of trust, which is we believe that everyone on the team wants to be as good at Fab as they can be. But a great example is Andrew at the start of the year. If it had been like, hey, you have to be on 5 days a week to be on the team, I think he burns out, and I don't know if he ever recovers. And so instead, putting it in, basically giving everyone, empowering everyone, and saying, hey, when you're excited and you're amped, like, show up and play. And like, we have a system where you can basically set your own schedule. It's just setting expectations. If you're not going to be there, you post that you're going to be absent or whatever. So someone doesn't show up at 6:30 in the morning and no one's there. That's not great to do that kind of a thing, or set aside an evening or whatever. But that is one of the huge upsides of having such a big team, is you can let it be more freeform, because there's just so many people that can be on whenever people can be on. And then you lean into when it's exciting. When it's exciting, everyone's on all the time. Like right now, there's tons of people all the time, just constantly.
Yeah, we're not even having any issue getting people together or drafting. It's just unfortunate that there's no easy or efficient way that we've been having to draft online, just because of the issues that have been happening with the website, where it's like, oh wait, I have on pack 6, but there's like 2 cards after my pack, and now I'm on pick 3, and there's
to be fair, it's
a free
you're
service.
you're referencing draftfab.com, and that's the URL, right? And I think draftfab.com and Talishar blow my mind, and Fabry, honestly,
for sure.
It's just like
the
amount of work these people are putting into this thing, and like, they may have Patreons. I don't know. I think I signed up for any of them that had them that I could, because it's just like, it is crazy that you're doing this. But yeah, it is a little harder to practice draft right now. And if there were an online tool that you could easily do that, that would be sweet. But yeah, the huge team is very helpful for all that. Even just having people from different metas that can draft in person and report back, and play constructed in person and report back is really powerful.
Yeah, and the bigger team does help with like the different regionalities though too, because like this weekend, Michael and I and Ben on the team are going to get together with like 5 other people, like local good players, and draft. And like, I know Fang up there in New York, and a bunch of the New Yorkers are up there drafting, and just like all the different regionalities that are still able to like kind of coalesce. And I think that helps the team as well, because then like we get the reports from the New York draft scene, we get the reports from the Indianapolis draft scene, we get the reports from the Oklahoma draft scene, and New York saying Riptide's broken and can't be defeated, and Indianapolis is saying Riptide's unplayable, how could you ever play Riptide? And we have to try to figure a way to like reconcile these wildly different opinions. And like, I just, like, for limited specifically, I feel like we just understand the set, and having the one thing that we do that I really like is like doing, everybody goes through the whole set and like rates all the cards, and then we just kind of talk about, well, like, why do you think this about that card, or what have been your experiences with this, or like, have you ever seen somebody ever think about hitting with the card toxicity or something like that. And it's just like, having that resource, I think, is just going to be such a huge level up that it's not even going to matter, like, the fact that the whole collation drama is going around right now. But
speaking of which, what is the drama? Can you give me the TLDR on that, T?
Sure. Do you know, Michael, or do you want me to go into it?
I can go through it. So basically, the Belgian print run and the Japanese print run have, like, the packs have different like different amounts of different types of cards. Like, I think one of the prints always has 2 rares, or a rare and a rare or higher, and one of them can have 1 rare and no higher rarity, or 2 rares or 3 rares. And there's also like mixed like different amounts of different class cards that can show up in one of the print runs compared to the other. And basically there was a lot of discussion that, hey, we need to know what's actually being drafted at the Pro Tour, because how are we going to practice if we don't know what's going to be in the packs? And LSS basically said that they're not going to tell us what they're going to do. They have something figured out, and it's going to be top secret. Just learn the fundamentals. Stop trying to memorize the specific pack distributions. So that's the drama.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I posted on Twitter where it's just like, for all the years Michael and I drafted in Magic, like, we listened to like this other podcast from Magic called Limited Resources. Not once in like the 10 years I played competitive Magic did they ever go like, well, you should know that of the 3 uncommons in this booster pack, one of the uncommons should be white, red, and green, or something like that, or this is the distribution. So, you know, if you get handed the pack, they took a card of this color. Like, that's just not a thing that's ever happened in Magic. So it's just weird to me that just because it has been a thing in previous Flesh and Blood sets, specifically Uprising, that people just kind of expected that going forward. But I would definitely say the Uprising experience was a huge bug more than a feature. And I know LSS was like pretty upset that people could be like, oh, well, this is the first red common of the box. I better take it because I'm only going to see one more red common for the rest of the draft pod. And if I don't take it, then I might not get it at all. Like, that's just like not healthy. You should be evaluating the cards based on the cards themselves, not like the meta context of like what is available to your what, or knowing specifically what somebody just took before you.
Yeah, I've never. It's interesting because clearly at Worlds we were drafting Uprising and we knew all that information. But I've outside of Fab, I've never played a game where that's true. I didn't play Magic, so I don't know. But there wasn't a way to kind of like cheekily know what had been drafted in any of the games I played before. And I think just reading the solution, I know I read a lot of people on Twitter were, or at least a lot of vocal people on Twitter were not pleased with the decision to, do it how they're doing it. But I think as long as they're clear about the fact that you should kind of just expect the unexpected, and it's not going to be predictable, and there's no, you can't know until you get there and you're doing it. As long as they're clear about that, I have no personal problems with it. Like, what I don't like is that, like, at Worlds, or no, it was Pro Tour Lille, I went in assuming that it was like our table was a single box that was being drafted, and that was very much not the case, and it was fine. But it took a little bit to understand that wasn't the case, and they weren't clear because we had played at previous events where that was more clear that was happening. And at nationals, I think one of my drafts that I did was the case. It felt like that. It worked out that way. So, anyways, all that to say, as long as they're clear about it, it just is what it is. It's kind of like the whole conversation about Blitz as part of the World Championship thing. It's like you can like it, you can love it, you can hate it, but at the end of the day, it's their event and it is what it is. And so, like, I don't know. That's just my perspective on most things.
My dream now is that, like, in Magic, they had Pro Tours like the week after the set would release. Like, it would be like basically like the set would release, you'd have like 1 or 2 weeks to find like your singles or whatever, collect your decks, figure out the set, and then you start drafting. And like that just like didn't give people the time to like figure this kind of stuff out, even if it did exist. And I think I would like to see the more premier level events start to come out like sooner than sets, and it even gives like LSS even has incentive to do that because the Magic was the professional tour, but it was also like cheekily known as the promotional tour because it came out so close to when the new set came out. Everybody's playing the new cards. Everybody's like, oh, this new card's on camera. I should go and buy the new set because all these new cards are on camera and it's out right now. Go buy. And it's like, that's actually a pretty valid reason to have them closer to like the launches of the sets as opposed to like these 1-2 Worlds was like 4 or 5 months after Uprising had come out. It was like, or like right before Dynasty. I think they wanted it to be like right after Dynasty, but they had like logistic issues, but I don't know.
Yeah, Dynasty came out a couple weeks later, or like a week later or something.
Yeah, and it was super weird.
I'm pretty sure that the goal was to have that out prior to Worlds, which I think is kind of cool to have like a supplemental. If you're going to drop a supplemental set, having it drop before a big constructed event like that is kind of cool. And the other part of the problem last year, though, was just only one limited set is like really brutal. It had just been so long with the previous limited experience, and then also with the one limited experience we did get on the year. But yeah, I if you look at these big pro events, as far as I can tell from my experience, the big tournaments and the big events are very much not they're not extremely profitable exchange for publishers. The effort, the staff, the prize money, the everything going on. So I think cheekily renaming it the promotional tour, even for Magic, makes a lot of sense. Like, I think the events are a marketing tool, and the events in Fab are a key integral part of the experience itself, of course. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of people are not going to play at Pro Tour 3. They play the game. Like, that's even with Blitz. It's like the percentage of people that being the last 5 rounds of Worlds actually affects is like so small compared to. And hate's a strong word. I've strongly disliked Blitz and was not super excited that it was a format at Worlds. But at the same time, just understanding like this is their event. They're the ones paying the money to make this happen. They're clear about it well in advance so people could prepare. And then it's a promotional thing, right? I mean, it's the content, it's the creators talking about it in the lead up, it's the afterwards, it's the gameplay films, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I'm with you though, Roger. I like limited formats early. And on the one hand, like world premiere pre-releases are super fun. Love that stuff. But I don't know if this happened in Magic or not, but I would assume if they put out a set and then had like a Pro Tour 2 weeks later, that would like incredibly favor a large team.
That's fair.
Or people that just don't have to do anything else for 2 weeks besides test Magic. But I would guess that like if Fab did that, one, we'd be in a great spot. So if you're out there listening, Legend Story, do it, make it happen. But it does feel for players that don't have a large team to test with or a large community. Tools like TTS or Talishar help with that, of course. But at the same time, like I feel like a large group would get there way quicker if we only had like a week or two to make it happen.
That's fair. Michael, you played in Magic the Gathering Pro Tours as well. Like, what's your take on this whole like timing and like the differences between the two games?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Zach that people that had access to big groups to figure out things faster, it helps a lot. One difference between Magic and Flesh and Blood is Magic had a very healthy online scene, both with Magic Online and Magic Arena, both being options. If you needed to jam competitive drafts and you fired up Magic Online drafts that were like you spent like $12 to play in this draft online, the competition was pretty fierce there because like these people were spending their money to play drafts. So it was like very easy to get very competitive drafts to practice for Pro Tours online. So like you didn't even have to play all your games at once either. You could do a draft, play one round, take a nap, play another round, go do your work thing, play another round. And because of that, it was just easier to get for like random people that didn't have teams. Because I never had a team in Magic. I would play with you a little bit, Roger. I'd play with whoever was around. But for the most part, I did most of my practicing on my own online. And I was able to find a lot out just testing online because
Makes sense.
it was just a very different resource than Talishar. And Talishar is great. You can get a lot of games. You can get games at any time, but you can't draft with random people. And you also can't guarantee that your opponents are as like, or there's like, you play against anyone, like anyone that just wants to play a game when you queue up on Talishar.
Yeah,
so.
Magic Arena has the ELO system or whatever they're ranking, and then Magic Online doesn't have like any systems like that. Like they do, but they don't matter for like matching or anything like that I know of. But you had to pay money every time you played like a game on Magic Online. Like it cost you real actual dollary dues just to like play, even with like your constructed decks. It's like, you want to play 5 games of Magic the Gathering online? Give us $5, please. So like just like people putting skin in the game, it just already filtered out like so many people that would just like play whatever janky decks because they're incentivized to win because they just spent $5 or whatever. They want to win $10 back by going 5-0 or whatever. But obviously, like you're saying, Michael, when everybody can just load up whatever deck they want whenever they want, there's no ramifications for leaving whenever you want. The quality of random opponents isn't necessarily the same thing then at that point.
Yeah, where I guess like it felt like the testing was good enough online to prepare me for a Pro Tour without being on a team. And if Flesh and Blood did something similar and I didn't have the Wolf Pack, like I would have no idea how to get those kind of competitive games that I needed.
That's fair.
Yeah. It forced people to figure out how to make a team, right? I think, but I don't think everyone would be able to. And it's just kind of like, I go back and forth. I think what they're seemingly doing now, conceptually, I like a lot, which is if you have a set hit and you have about a month, 4 to 5 weeks to the next major event, and it seems like that's this year. That's what they're doing for Pro Tour 3, National Championship, and World Championship. And so, like at Worlds this year, I think we'll get a new draftable set about a month, 4 to 5 weeks before Worlds actually happens. And I think that with the if they do Worlds again with constructed, draft, and blitz,
please no.
Well, I'm just preparing for it, and then if they make a different decision, sweet. But if they do that, having 3 formats to get ready for in that 4 to 5 week period, it'll be plenty. Like, and even with the big team, I feel like 4 to 5 weeks will probably feel like 2 to 3 weeks too little, which is good. That's a good pace. I think you don't necessarily want, like last at Worlds, part of the, I think, friction on the draft part of it was we just had that draft set for so long. So like you didn't have to prepare for that part of it.
And it was so on rails.
Yeah. And then like the constructed format had been kind of very similar for a while. And so I really love the idea that before Worlds, we're going to get a new draft set, and it's going to change, hopefully constructed, and we're going to change blitz, and hopefully we don't play blitz, but that's okay. Yeah, I expect Worlds this year will be much more interesting, even just from a spectator standpoint.
So let's say LSS starts going up to 4 sets a year, which I think is the plan for 2024. Well, how would you feel if they went back up to like each big event was then associated with like a set? So you would have a set like at the beginning of the year, like January, February, Pro Tour, set number 2 in the year, and like April, May time, Pro Tour number 3, Nationals, Worlds. So like once a quarter big event. Do you think that would be too much and lead to burnout again? Or do you think that could be with the more frequent rotations kind of keep the game fresher at that point then?
I feel like they're planning on doing 4 sets. So I would not be surprised if we get back to 2 Pro Tours, a national championship and a world championship next year. It's also, I don't know the numbers, but I know the largest chunk of players are in the US, and this year the Pro Tour is in the US. So next year, if the Pro Tour was in, let's say, Europe or New Zealand or Australia or
Brazil,
Asia,
Japan are big markets getting into the game now.
Any of those areas, I could, if I were on their side, and I'm biased because I'm an American, but just given the size of the player base, I wouldn't be surprised if we have an American Pro Tour and then a non-American Pro Tour and a non-American World Championship, and you basically have the ability to give, and America could also get Worlds or whatever, but you have the ability for America to have one, Europe to have one, and some other market to have a major event. If you add a 4th one, you just get to serve another market, right? And like I think that prevents the burnout thing for people that want to internationally travel to all those events.
Like Michael loves international travel. It's his favorite thing.
After France, no. I don't know if I can do it, dog. I don't know if I can do it again. I'll go to Worlds is the one international event I would go to, but I don't know. We'll see. It's a lot. Traveling internationally for a tournament is a lot. I have mad props for people that travel to America to come to these big events and do well. Like France was a trip, man.
Yeah,
that was crazy. But yeah, so I wouldn't be shocked if 4 sets equals 4 major events, and then it's spread out a little bit more. It gives people a chance to go to big events that normally don't, and then it not a lot percentage wise. I don't think a ton of Americans are going to make it to Japan or wherever.
I'm going to Japan. I'm going to Japan. They could host a battle hard in Japan. I'm going to battle hard in Kyoto or any name a city in Japan. I'm going.
Yeah. You'd go to Battle Hardened in Japan?
Maybe, probably. I don't know. We got a lot of.
He's walking it back. He's walking it back.
It depends how much. It depends what my man or travel budget is at that point. If it has the funds to cover it, I'm much more incentivized to go.
Yeah, Japan's on my Japan and New Zealand are high on my list of places I want to go. Still.
I'm a huge weeb. Weeb.
And so if there were a calling or a Pro Tour at one of those places, I would be very incentivized to go. But I am curious if it's going to be like if 4 sets a year means 1 set a quarter, or if it means a limited set every 4 months, and then you drop the supplemental set 2 weeks before Worlds, and it's like, good luck.
I don't know.
That'd be pretty exciting.
Yeah, because I think this next supplemental set will probably dictate a lot of that, because this is going to be the first time that they're like really focusing and honing in. And I think they learned a lot of lessons that like just the from Everfest and Dynasty that you can't just keep giving each class in the game, especially as more and more classes keep getting added, like 2 cards, and people are like, what do I need these unplayable 2 cards right now? Like, they're unplayable now. I'm sure LSS has a plan for them in the future, but it's like, it's not a satisfying like experience to the people opening those packs or like collecting the product or stuff like that, to have the cards like sit in a binder. It doesn't give you like a lot of incentivism to like go out and like buy all the things until like 2 years later, and then by that time they're out of print, they're out of circulation, and then they're much higher. You're like, well, now I need this card because it combines with the new Ward Draconic Mega Ultra Ice Illusionist that gives all your Ward +8/+8 or something like that, and I need all these Ward Matter cards from Dynasty. But so I don't know, but I guess all that to say is just like the next supplemental set I think will determine the future of like how often we'll get like supplemental sets.
Yeah, and you know, in hindsight, I think it's easier to understand what went wrong. But looking at it, I totally get the idea of we want to make sure no matter what class you chose to play or what hero you like, you get new cards every year, right? Or you get cards every couple sets. But if those cards don't really have a huge impact, it's kind of the LCG problem. I don't know if you guys you probably haven't played any living card games, but like the Game of Thrones LCG, they have a monthly pack that came out, and it's not collectible, so it's not random. It's fixed. Like, you know exactly what's coming in this monthly pack. But I only played House Targaryen in that game, and so literally once a month I would get 1 or 2 unique cards that I like. 3 copies of each card that you could put in your deck. And like if you or pick your favorite class and you just have the set that came in, and then it was just like every month after that, you just get 2 cards. It's a very slow burn, right? It's a slow churn a lot of times. And like they would do it thematically. So it'd be like a cycle, focused on knights as an example. But the problem is that like you get 2 cards that are cool and they're knights, but you don't have the rest of the cards that go with the knights. And so it would take you like 6 months before you had enough of the cards to play the thing that they've been giving you. So you get 2 new cards, but they're not even playable. And it's like, all right, well, so now you're going like these long stretches of time where you just don't get new things for your thing. So I get why you would want supplemental sets to be that way. But personally, and I think what they've probably seen in the numbers is even limited sets, like in this most recent one, Outsiders, with 3 different classes, there's people are buying it and people love limited and people are playing it regardless of what's in the set. And there are going to be some amount of players that want the Ranger cards or the Assassin cards or whatever. So I'm excited to see what they do. One thing to Legend Story's credit is since we started interacting with Fab, they have continually been listening and trying to improve and change things. Yeah. And they're not afraid to change things. I mean, Fab 2.0 is a big example, getting rid of Unlimited and the first edition thing. And even this past set, they're like making Majestics a little harder to get, but they're making Legendaries a little easier to get, and like they're tweaking it. So I'm sure this being the 10th set, it's going to be a pretty notable. That's like a pretty big benchmark for a lot of games. Set 10. Yeah. I played a lot of games that die around set 9 or 10, like tons of games.
I guess we should be nervous then.
Yeah. Well, I'm not nervous at all. That's the part of the miracle of Fab. But yeah, I'm excited to see what it is and how they handle it. But mostly, if I had to pick, I would, if I had to get rid of Constructed or Limited, I would get rid of Constructed.
That's crazy.
You're
in the vast majority. I love Limited, but yeah, Constructed's where it's at.
If there was if it were just Limited, right? Like if there were a new Limited set every like couple months, and I could just do that and like just keep doing it, that would be. I don't think it's necessarily a sustainable business, but that would be like my ideal game state, right? Like if I were just playing that, and there were a lot of big tournaments for draft and all that kind of stuff, and a new draft experience every so often. And the other thing is, I just know so many people that don't have a team, that have full-time jobs, that have kids, that have lives, that have all that kind of stuff going on. And even going to local tournaments, like I went to the pre-release and the release weekend stuff here in Oklahoma. And the people that are showing up to it that I haven't seen since Uprising came out, right? Like they were around for a month or 2. We went to big tournaments for Nationals and Worlds, and then Dynasty came out, and it was just like crickets.
Whatever.
Yeah. So not that there's some cards in Dynasty I really love, and I think the theme's cool, and the Emperor is awesome, and all that stuff. But like, and introducing Assassin was awesome, but that lack of the limited drum beat to me is a really big deal. I think for basically every tier of the game, all the way from the most kitchen table to the most competitive world championship. So I'm glad that's a big change, and I know how much harder it is. Over the years, we've interviewed and talked with a ton of developers and designers of different games. And the difference between designing a limited card set and constructed cards is like enormous. It's crazy. And that's another reason supplemental sets are sort of necessary, because there are cards you do not want in a limited environment that are perfectly fine and constructed. And so it's tough to find that balance, but I have full faith that they'll do it, and they'll listen all along the way. So even if they don't quite get there in time, I think they will. And I'm just excited to watch it unfold, because nothing's for sure, right? Like, they keep just changing little things at a time. And it's looking back at how Fab was going 2 or 3 years ago, the way it was functioning, even back when the pandemic, when events weren't happening. Like, it's really crazy to think about where it's at now, and like what's going on and all the changes that have happened. So it's exciting.
Yeah. So I guess to cap things off, final question I'm going to ask. So of the 10th set, the new set coming out, what talent / hero type are you most looking forward to either getting more support or potentially being introduced? We all know I'm a Light Warrior simp. And I think you're going to say Shadow Runeblade, Zach, but I'll let you take that from there before kicking over to Michael.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think the one thing that could happen in Fab, there's 2 things that could happen in Fab that would make me super pumped, like just beyond pumped. One is reprinting Duskblade in a playable form. The art, the card, the theme, the lore, all that around that card is like, I saw that preview, not even looking at the math of how crazy that card is. Just saw the card, saw there was a Duskblade. There's a Dawnblade, obviously, with Dory. It's like, love the whole idea of that card. So if they reprint it and make it where we can use Duskblade, that would make me very happy. The other thing is, it's kind of weird. Like, I wasn't ever really into to Chain or Shadow Runeblade, and part of that is because he was immediately tier 1. Like, not even questionable, right? Just kind of gross tier 1. But like, the Shadow theme in the lore is like one step past the kind of like
it's very gritty.
Yeah, it's just like, it's one Chain versus Viserai. Chain is like one click further down the like death and evil lane. And it's I'm not offended by it, but it's like, like Chain, I don't know.
Some of the cards are writ much, like consuming bellows of hell or whatever and stuff like that. And like, you just see all the demons and guts literally falling from like the sky and stuff like that. It's now, like, this is a bit much.
Some of it, is like cool. Like, some of the Chain art and cards is like, oh, that's kind of like creepy and like a good, like a enjoyable way. But some of it's just like, oh my God. Which is fine. I have no like qualms.
So maybe a light Runeblade. You want a nice, kind, peaceful Runeblade.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like one of 2 things happening. Either Dory falling to like the shadows and being a Runeblade would be awesome.
No.
Or a light Runeblade would be awesome. I don't know what that would look like, but that might not be the answer you were looking for. But Duskblade and then a light Runeblade of some kind, and then kind of 2.5 point is Dory falling to the dark side, as it were, would be. I love that stuff. When like the good hero that everyone loves from the beginning is like suddenly on the bad guy side. Absolutely want it to happen. Anyways,
I hope Viserai turns into a light guardian.
I mean, he might. If you read his story, like, wrong place, wrong time. But that's that's where I think, even just thematically, the things characters I like in movies and shows and stuff. Or like, I grew up and like when I was 8 or 9, watched Star Wars, and Darth Vader was just suddenly the coolest person on the planet. And then you find out he's this conflicted person, and like, maybe, that whole thing. So Viserai very much fits that bill, right? He's got the like Vader, Anakin, like kind of being held against his will and not necessarily a bad guy, but maybe he could be a good guy at some point. So yeah, he could definitely, I don't know lore wise how that would work, but I have hope for my boy Viscerai. We'll see where he lines up. What about you, Michael?
I'm not really a huge lore person, but I like what you said. I think like flipping expectations and having like a Shadow Dorinthia or a Light Viscerai would be pretty cool. I really am just kind of hoping they don't print another broken Light Illusionist, because I like to play decks that cannot beat Light Illusionists. And I think we're
I think
almost
all of us
definitely going to get one.
I like to play the Light Illusionist. Yeah.
We just got
confirmed, but we're getting a Shadow Runeblade and a Light Illusionist. But
do you... So I know you also do some development work, Michael. Do you think it's possible that sort of like they changed the way traps work, that they would touch the word Spectra? Like, I'm not a rules guy, but when rules are not intuitive, or they're like, you kind of have to remember how certain things work, not because it's principle intuitive based system, the way certain things function. When rules are like that, and that to me, Spectra's been that from the very beginning. It's like, oh, my rune chants pop if I attack you with this thing, but not with this thing. And
they changed that rule, but yeah.
But the main point being that, like, do you think it's possible they changed the way Spectra works in this game? Is it too much? I'm asking the hot questions here.
I was actually going to talk about the rune chant interaction, because they are making changes that they can do to make things work intuitively, how, like, at least be consistent. So like the weapons and the playing an attack action both trigger at the same time when you attack a Spectra thing. So they have changed the rules to make it a little bit more intuitive, but I think like fundamentally there's not really a change they can make that would make it make sense. Like if you play your go again attack at it, then there's nothing to hit because of how Spectra works, and like so that you can't get your action point back because of everything with go again doesn't resolve unless the attack resolves. So there's not really a clean way to fix that to give you your action point back. And I think that's like the biggest thing that's kind of left that's really weird about Spectra, is like when you play your go again attack, you don't get a go again. And I don't think
even if it was just like, unless you pay one, you lose your action point. I think that'd be fine. Like you don't get go again unless you like pay a resource or something like that. Maybe, I don't know.
I was more thinking like on the traps, they're literally reprinting the cards, right, to change the original trap rules. Anyways, carry on.
I wouldn't be surprised if new light illusions, like auras, I guess not illusions, like new auras have different mechanics other than Spectra. Maybe they're all ward and we don't see any more Spectra things, but I don't think there's really a clean way to fix the rules of Spectra. And I think like the old traps, they didn't change their functionality. They just made the part of them that was reminder text, instead of being reminder text, it's actual just rules text on those traps. So like they're still, you can only play them from Arsenal, and the new traps just didn't have that. So I think they might move away from Spectra on the new auras, but I don't think we'll see something like a complete rework of how the old auras work.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see.
Especially being like a physical card game, there's just not really a clean way to do that. If it was a digital card game, maybe they're like, we hate Spectra. We're just going to pretend it never existed. We're going to change all these cards to as if they never had Spectra in the first place, and they're going to get completely reworked. That's not something you can really do with a physical game.
I will say Luminaris going away is very helpful to that whole ecosystem of Spectra. So yeah, we'll see. I know people love Prism, so she'll be back, and that'll be I'm excited. So like I have a love-hate relationship, because by the end my favorite hero to play was Briar, and I felt like that was a really good match for Briar. But there was a good like 6 to 9 months where I was on Viscerai before we had such hits as Revel and Runeblood or Swarming Gloomveil or Spellbound Creepers. And I just could not beat Prism. Like it was like I would get really close every time and I just couldn't do it forever. So that built up, and I also loved to play Bravo in the early days. So I built up a really healthy dislike of Light Illusionist for that reason. And then on top of it, the rules worked a little wonky around the rune chants and the way you interact with Spectra. and they take away the action points, and it's like, this isn't fair, but it doesn't count as hitting a hero. So like your hit effects don't always trigger. It's just like all these things. And it did get better over time. But all that to say, I'm hopeful for all the fans out there that Light Illusionist is great, but also not so great that Michael Hamilton can't play Oldham or Guardian or Icelander.
Icelander.
It'll be a Shadow Wizard. Tell me,
Icelander can never beat Prism.
It'll be a Shadow Wizard. I would bet good money that'll be a Shadow Wizard in the next set. Look at Tome of Torment. That's a Shadow card waiting to be played in a Wizard deck.
Do you think we'll get other classes? Like, you think we'll get Shadow Wizard? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would be surprised if we didn't. Basically, I think they'll give some support. I think maybe they'll sprinkle, like, because we know there's like, and if you focus it around the talents, right? So like, think about like if you just introduced like Arachne, this new class in a supplemental set. Well, like Arachne then only has Arachne assassin cards and generics. That's it. But if you would have introduced like Shadow Arachne, at least in the last set, you at least would have had, or Shadow Assassin, at least would have had the assassin cards, the Shadow Assassin cards they probably would have put in the set, the Shadow cards, and generic pool. So like, if you're going to take a supplemental set, it seems like a better way to introduce new heroes with the talents, because they just by default have just a wider card pool that they would have access to right off the bat.
Yeah, like Starvo had a great card pool.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, this new elemental guy, he gets all the elemental cards. He had like the biggest card pool in the game. It was crazy. Yeah. What a coincidence.
And he was too good, huh? Crazy. Yeah. Who would have thought access to cards in a card game is good?
Yeah. Well, on that note, with that sage wisdom that I'm sure we'll report back to the Wolfpack, any final concluding thoughts here, Zach or Michael?
Final note for me, thank you guys again for having me. It's a privilege to be here, and it's an honor to be your first repeat guest. I love having you on the Wolfpack, and keep doing what you're doing. I mean it. And if you're out there, two people, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you enjoy what they're doing, tell them what you like, give them high fives, give them pats on the back, give them compliments. And if you're also out there creating content and building community, whether it's Flesh and Blood or any other game, just keep doing it. You're a huge part of why these games are worth being a part of and why these communities function. So it's a lot of work, but it's really meaningful, even if you don't hear that very often. So thank you guys for doing it. Thank you for helping building the incredible community that is Fab, and looking forward to seeing you at Pro Tour 3. If anyone out there, if you're going to be at Pro Tour 3, be sure to say hi, flash the Wolfpack symbol. Everyone will be happy.
I will.
I just want to say thank you very much, Zach, for coming on. And you're always like you're a very positive person, and you also are a great storyteller. And I feel like that leads to just like a very pleasant experience. Like I'm engaged by your stories, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are too. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for the compliment.
Yeah. I like both of you guys a reasonable amount, and I plan to keep interacting with you both a reasonable amount in the future. So with all that being said, the next time you're playing Flesh and Blood on a team or not, always remember to mind your manners. Thanks for watching.